Hey everybody, this is the Playful Humans podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague, and my guest this week is a stand-up comedian and a writer, a best-selling author, and former mayor. We're going to talk with him about what it's like to be a playful human. His name's Jeremy Nunes. He's right there. He's been there the whole time. My name is Mike, and I'm from Playful Humans. You can find us at playfulhumans.com, where we have a club encouraging adults to rediscover the power of play. It's sort of like a private Facebook group without all the Facebook shenanigans. So you can find that at playfulhumans.com and take a personality quiz there as well. Here we go. Don't wait for Jeremy, welcome to the podcast. We like to start with the joke of the week. The joke of the week is brought to you by vacuum cleaners. I just sold my vacuum cleaner. It was just gathering dust. Vacuum cleaners. What did the fisherman say to the magician?
What's that?
Pick a cod, any cod. I feel like that's also what magicians in Boston.
I was going to say, it should be, what did the Boston magician say to the fisherman? Then it's better. Yeah.
You're a comedian, so I don't want to put any pressure on this, what you do for a living. Do you have a joke for us?
So I can do a street dad joke. Why did little Johnny drop his ice cream cone?
I don't know.
Because he got hit by a bus.
That escalated quickly. All right. So before we go any further, we should tell people about what you have going on. So Jeremy's stand-up special, Who's With Me, is available on Amazon Prime and Christian Cinema. And his dry bar comedy special is entitled Neighborhood Sasquatch. How do you say that? Sasquatch?
Sasquatch, yeah.
Play on Neighborhood Watch, but Jeremy, you can't tell on Zoom, is a tall man. So I'm assuming that's where the Sasquatch part comes in.
Exactly. I'm 6'7", and used to run the neighborhood, as you mentioned. So the neighborhood Sasquatch was born.
Yeah. So I want to jump into that too. You ran for mayor, and that turned into your best-selling Amazon book, You Can't Write City Hall. And you can find that book obviously on Amazon or you can't write cityhall.com. Let's roll back a little bit though. So a mayor seems like a serious job, although I imagine that you didn't take it too seriously based on the book and stuff that resulted from it. Did you ever have a real job, or have you always gone like straight into comedy and stuff?
No, I had real jobs. I tried to break into the comedy scene in Chicago. Worked at a law firm, kind of doing file work and then some basic accounting stuff. So I don't know how I pulled this off, but in my 20s, I'd work, the 9 to 5, then go to a club somewhere and perform, and you've probably heard the stories that sometimes you don't get done until, 2, 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
Come right back home, sleep for 4 hours, back to work, do it all over again. And how I didn't die is beyond me. I have no idea.
I think it's just the 20s. I did the same thing. I DJ'd in bars and clubs until 1 o'clock in the morning, and then I have to pack up equipment and drive home, sometimes like 30 minutes, not get home till like 2 o'clock in the morning, and then wake up at 6 and go to a job at 8 and stuff. And it was crazy times, but also a ton of fun. I remember enjoying most of it. So when did it click over for you? Where did you get to retire the day jobs and be a full-time playful human?
So it would have been October 2007. And I remember specifically, so I left Chicago because I was like, well, I could probably do this for my hometown if I was making enough money to do it for my hometown. See, in Chicago at the time, rent for a 1-bedroom apartment was more than the typical mortgage anywhere else.
Right.
So I was like, it'd be tight if I stayed in Chicago. So I would talk to all these agents and promoters, like, do you care where the comedians are from? And they're like, no, all we care about is you're funny and people come. So, okay.
Yeah.
So left in October '07, moved back to my hometown in Middle Illinois. And I remember because it was my sister's 21st birthday, and I took all of her thunder away because everyone was just so excited that I was back. And she's like, "Who's going out for my 21st birthday?" And everybody's like, "No one cares. Jeremy's back."
Oh no. Well, that's amazing. I think that's funny. And you mentioned something interesting there about being funny, because I found there are a few professions that are very much like merit based for a large part. So I think like in sales, if you can sell something, it doesn't matter like what, if you can sell, you'll never need for a job. You will, you'll find something, and you really get to choose what you can sell there. And comedy, I feel like, is the same way, although I'm sure like ultimate stardom and some of the other things require lucky break and connections and other things that effort and practice. But would you say that to be true, that it really just matters if you're funny and if you can figure out how to be funny somewhere along the way?
I think that's most of it, but a big part is, the sales, as you mentioned, is actually a big part of it. I try to remind newer guys, they get upset. "Oh, I've emailed this club so many times and no one responds." And what I tell them is, this is fact, a comedy club owner or a promoter or an agency, they're getting 150, 200 emails a day from comedians trying to get in. So,
Right.
like you mentioned, like the vacuum cleaners, imagine if you're in the market for a vacuum cleaner and 200 people reach out to you to sell you their vacuum cleaner. It's going to come down to who has the best pitch. Is it, you know what I mean? So, so that's a big part of it, I think, more than anything. Yeah.
You bring up a great point, and I was going to ask you about that because I feel like I've only just gotten to know you, and I watched some of your stuff online and stuff. Very funny, but we talked about your height, but you also have the working clean and your religious background. So I feel like personal brand for anything you do is extremely important, because that's what people latch onto, is the story and the pitch that you're talking about. When did you choose that specifically, and or did you feel like it found you, and how did you find your niche with it?
Well, it's sort of kind of found me. I was always clean as far as comedy clubs go, but generally, clean in a comedy club means no more than 2 F-bombs. Then that's clean. But I was definitely clean by comedy club standards, and then basically what happened is I got hired to perform for this college agent. He's going to have me cancel all my shows, work specifically for him. He's going to make me this big star. Of course, that didn't work out because I live in the middle of Illinois now. But so what happened, I canceled all my shows in all these different clubs, and then none of the clubs would hire me again because they didn't trust me anymore to follow through on the shows. So I really had no choice. I had some of my old comedian buddies that had been doing it for decades said, you have the ability to work clean. Why don't you try to do stuff like corporate events or churches? So that's kind of how it started. It sort of trickled into doing a church here and there, and then like a company party here and there. And then suddenly, one show led to another. A guy at that show was, so I'd be at a church and the guy would come up and be like, "Hey, my brother is actually a preacher at the church about an hour down the road. I'm going to tell him about you," and then I'd get that.
Nice.
And similar for like the company parties, somebody come up and be like, "Hey, my wife owns, a business over, would you do a show for them?" And then it just kind of built from there. And then suddenly had this big empire and is making, far more for one show than I did, for a whole week run of club shows. So it was definitely worth it. Yeah.
I found that too. I love doing corporate parties and keynote speeches and stuff, because keynotes pay way better than pretty much anything else in the entertainment business. And I don't think people realize that either when they want to be artists or musicians or entertainers or comedians, magician. You're like, the corporate has all of the money. So they're going to pay a lot more. Now, I don't know the same thing is true about churches. I would love to hear about, how you get into that or make that work for you, because my brother is a pastor and a former stand-up comedian. He won funniest person in Kansas City and stuff. But
Oh, wow.
the one time we bombed hardest together was at a church charity function. It was a casino night. I'm not sure they knew comedy was happening, and it was just like a terribly stressful and painful bomb for both of us.
So, knock on wood, I've never bombed at a church. Generally, I tell people they're the easiest of audiences because they want you to do good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you go to a club, most of the people there are like, man, I paid $20 to see this. I hope this is good. You know what I mean? Versus,
yeah,
you go to the church and they're like, he seems like a nice guy. Let's,
Well, yeah, and I also say this about my brother, and I have both found this out. He was in stand-up comedy and became a college professor, and it's like a mediocre stand-up comedy, performer is a super funny college professor, right? So it's going into the market when they're used to like really serious pastoral lectures, and then you come on with anything that's lighthearted and funny. It's a big step up. It's a lower bar, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And so and you were asking about like the church situation. Yeah. They pay you fair for sure. But as far as breaking in, you're asking like how do you get through? The big thing is a lot of these churches, they've never had somebody like a comedian come in. So they're very leery to just hand the microphone over to a stranger in front of their people, because if you say one thing you shouldn't say, it's going to be on them. So the worst thing you can do is do something like that as a comedian, and then when the next guy's trying to get in, they're like, oh well, we had Dan here last time, and he dropped an F-bomb, and so we're just not doing it anymore. And then I got to call up Dan and be like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah, Dan, you're killing me.
Right. Right. So that's what a lot of comedians will, that have helped me over the years. I say, well, what can I do to help you? I mean, you've done so much for me. And they always say, when you do a show, make sure it's good, so it's still there for the next guy.
Yeah, I think that's great. Now I want to ask you about your political campaign. And so we should tell people it's a very small town. So was it 500 people?
Yeah. You've done your research.
And did you get nominated, or did you decide to run as mayor? How did it happen?
So basically, I was an alderman for 2 years, and that I took seriously because I just wanted to help. I would travel the whole country and see these amazing small towns. I'd be like, why can't my town be like this? So I got on town board. A lot of people on the town board were encouraging me to run for mayor. They're like, you're the smartest person in here. You ask great questions, things like, how much will this cost?
Right.
Is there an alternative option? No one has asked these questions before. You're the guy. So I'm like, okay. So basically they kept pushing me. I didn't want to. So I basically made a joke of the election process. The guy I ran against has been mayor for 24 years. So I run against him. I register my name on the ballot as comedian Jeremy Nunes. I make my campaign slogan, put a real joker in office. Because I was like, of course, who's going to vote for this person? 80% of the town.
Yeah. That's a landslide. Congratulations. That's
Thanks.
amazing.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? I was kind of going through the process of writing the book, and you have a person whose job is to they like just kind of read through the book. I think it's called a copy editor. They just make sure the guy you're calling Joe doesn't switch to John 5 pages later, and all the stories are tied up. You don't leave anything unknown. And she happened to notice I was describing the night I was sworn in. I said, my wife is there, my mom is there, my sister is there. And the lady says, we didn't mention your dad. We should explain why your dad isn't there. Has he passed away? Does he live far away? I was like, oh, my dad wasn't there because he voted for the incumbent mayor.
That's funny. Which it feels like something my dad would do for sure, especially if I was on the other political party from his. And that is so great. So then what was your term like? And I imagine you did take the job seriously, but not yourself. So how was that balance?
Well, it was tough. First of all, I cannot get over how pale I look compared to you, by the way. I almost look ghostly.
A little bit of white balance on the cameras for sure, but yes, I do a lot of walking.
Okay. So yeah, anywho, it's I did take it very serious. I do talk about this in my show, so you might have heard this, but I actually won an award for being one of Illinois' most ethical mayors. And
wow.
A lot of people are not impressed by that, because if you know anything about Illinois politics, it's not really hard to to win an ethical award.
You didn't go to federal prison afterwards, so
yes.
Yeah, you won that one. Yeah.
And that's what people say. Oh, are you going to run for higher office, maybe governor? And I'm like, well, the bar is low, because a successful tenure as governor is to not go to jail. So I could. But so I issued a fine to my parents. That's why I got this award. And I remember my dad calling me when he found out. He was like, Jeremy, why did I get this fine in the mail? And I was like, well, your grass is way too high. You have to mow your grass. It's like, Jeremy, you mow our grass. And I was like, well, you should have called me sooner. So now you owe the town $300 and me $50 for mowing your grass.
Oh, no.
But so you'd mentioned it's a town of 500 people. What's kind of unusual about being the mayor of a town so small is you as the mayor, wear the hat of all these different professions that in a larger city would be someone's full-time job. So I was the animal control officer, the health inspector, chief of police, liquor commissioner, and on and on and on. And so we had a handful of abandoned houses in the town. Might surprise you that a small town is, some people just I'll just leave this house here. I don't need it anymore. But so it was really starting to smell. Everybody noticed something smelled. And guy that lived next door reached out to me, figured out there's a family of skunks living in that house. And he's like, you need to go in there and get those skunks. And I was like, well, I'm not doing it. He's like, you're animal control officer. That's your job. And I'm like, it's probably better, for things I can call in the county animal control people can handle this much better than me. And he's like, nope, you're also chief of police, so you can carry a gun. You need to go in there and shoot them all.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, again, it's not something for me. I'd rather have the county handle it. And he's like, hey, you need to do it. My taxes pay for better. And I was like, I hardly think you pay your taxes.
There's 500 people. We can find out how much you paid. We see your $20 in the coffer.
Right.
That's great. Now, what do you do for fun? Because I found that like when you make your passion and your fun your career, sometimes those things get caught up and start to feel like work. What do you do outside just to enjoy yourself?
That's a good question. I often don't have a lot of time. I've been with the book release. I've been doing a lot of interviews like these, and this is fun for me. So, and what's really fun? I get to be in a room by myself without my kids. So that, and if you notice,
for 30 minutes.
Yeah, I said it quietly so they couldn't hear me in the other room. But so I enjoy stuff like this. A little side hustle I do is the success I had as mayor actually turned into me doing a little consulting work for small towns that are trying to figure out how to do certain things, get grants, various different stuff like that, growth and whatnot. So I do a lot of that. And then, I'm traveling all the time. As COVID has started to fade away, my calendar is just jam packed. So what can I say? What do I do for fun? My wife, maybe.
Hello.
That was a little etchy for me, but yeah. So
that's as far as you go. Yeah, implied. Okay, so here's a fun one I learned from your stand-up comedy too. We already mentioned you're 6'7". I am the shortest Montague on my side at 6'2". So my brother's 6'5", 6". My dad's 6'4". I have a cousin that's like 6'8" and played basketball. But you famously mentioned that you did not play basketball. So, what were you doing, and how were you not recruited for the team there? Did you sprout late? What happened?
You know what? It's funny. True story. So I played my freshman year, and I don't know if they have this in your state, but there's a 3-point shootout tournament called King of the Hill.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I got all the way to the super sectionals in King of the Hill as a 3-point shooter as a freshman. And I was a tiny little runt of a kid. I was maybe 5'2", 5'3", something like that.
Whoa.
But it kind of ran its course. I just got bored with it. It wasn't really a passion of mine, so I never played. And then I know where the follow-up's going with this. So I had my big growth spurt, and the high school coach was always like, well, you got to play, you got to play, you got to play. And I'm like, man, I was the best 3-point shooter on the team. You didn't let me play then. So why should I believe if I'm the tallest kid on the team, I'm still going to, and so I just didn't do it. Even in college, the community college I originally went to, and then the college beyond that, was offered a scholarship without them even seeing me on the court. Both teams had like 7 players, and both of them were like, we'll give you full ride scholarships if you'll play on the basketball team. And I was like, nah, because at the time I was working as a professional wrestler and really enjoying myself too much with that. So
oh my gosh, that's awesome. You went the Andre the Giant route instead then, huh?
Sure. And to work in a plug, so we talk pro wrestling on the Dynamite Drop-In podcast. But yeah, it's pretty good at it. Yeah, I was got pretty good at it. I was definitely what they call the baby face, the good guy. I was definitely the top draw in our area, and actually got all squared up. They're going to take me to Japan, which is sort of like the next level before you move into like what's now the WWE or something like that. And my company had a big fallout with that company. I didn't have anything to do with it, but because I was associated with one, they wouldn't take me in the other anymore.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then by then I was kind of dabbling in comedy, and I was like, well, should I continue with the wrestling? So a lot of people don't know, when I was in Chicago breaking into the comedy biz, I also had did a little bit of wrestling up there, and wrestled a handful of guys that are still around today. So jack of all trades, doing all kinds of stuff for fun. Yeah.
Well, I think that's awesome. I'm glad we got to something juicy there with that question, because I felt guilty about asking you about basketball after you. I'm sure you get that question almost every day of your life. But so I had 2 questions here to wrap up, and then we'll play a game. First one is, out of all of that stuff, what do you feel like was the most fun? What was your best day or most fun you ever had as a performer?
Man, the ones that come to mind as comedy, what really affirmed me and felt so great when we filmed that Amazon special. I just remember, well, see, a little side note, unless you're a prominent name, you're paying out of pocket to film this special and crossing your fingers that somebody buys it. Okay, so it cost me a little less than, I think, a little under $10,000 to actually put this thing together. And yeah, and so we do the show and just absolutely crush it. And at the end, everybody just stands up and applauds. And I was like, wow, I'm much better than I thought I was. That's what I think. So that's the one that probably comes to mind. Boy, filming same thing. Filming the Dry Bar special was very similar. I was really nervous about that one, and it turned out great. And then wrestling, when I won the championship, and the crowd goes absolutely bonkers. So a little side note on this storyline before I tell you. So I was sort of the mid-level champion. And then I win the big title, and everybody goes bonkers. It was so loud, it hurt my ears. That's how loud it was.
Wow.
And the guy that's the evil bad guy commissioner comes out. And he goes, I see what happened here. My name was Looney J. Nooney. That was the wrestling.
Nice.
And he's like, I see what happened here. And I'm sorry, but I am stripping you of the title because the rule says that you cannot hold 2 championships at the same time. And then everybody, boo, boo. And then the quote owner comes out and he goes, I understand that's a rule, but the rule has been altered, and it now says you cannot hold 2 championships at the same time unless you are Looney J. Nooney. And everybody went nuts again. Yeah, and then that was the last match. The fire marshal shut it down. So,
oh my gosh. Was any of your wrestling ever filmed? Do you have any good like pictures or video of that?
You know what? I just came across it literally this week. I hadn't seen it in years and years, and just got my hands on it because my wife didn't even believe the stories. But yeah, and I'm still waiting for a few more because some of the cooler stuff I did is not on those tapes. I used to run and dive, and I could do a flip over the top rope and land on guys. And that's why it was such a big draw. No one's seen a 6'7" guy do that sort of stuff. And but then, yeah, fire marshals shut them down because of a news article that made stuff up. They're like, they draw crowds, and they have burning barrels, and they burn fires in there for heat. And we're like, we don't do that, but you know, it's free publicity, I guess. And then next day, here's the fire marshal to shut the whole thing down.
Oh, geez, that's crazy. And then my last question for you, and I love that, especially that your best days were filmed and for the specials. That's awesome. That's really cool, and something that you can go back and remember and relive for the rest of your life. But if you had a bucket list item, what would it be? Do you have anything left on your fun bucket list?
Huh. You know, what would I like to do? You know, my big sort of item is to sell the rights to that book. That would be sort of the big thing. So I guess it's not really fun for me. It's that I could retire. So that I'll take it. So maybe that, you know, I just have fun going out, man, performing for the big crowds again. I mean, that's just so much fun for me. I don't know what else. To sell the rights to that book would be great. I'm just having fun. As the crowds get bigger, I guess my thrill gets bigger. So if you want me, you know, if I perform at like a gigantic theater or something like that, maybe that would be cool. But no, man, I'm very happy with what I'm doing.
That's awesome. Congratulations. And I got to tell you my book story real quick, because I don't think I've told it on the podcast yet. But you need to be very specific about your goals there. And this is my advice for everybody, because I put on my vision board in like 2014, like get a book deal. And I was writing this book about how to use LinkedIn for salespeople, not for marketers. Because around then, you know, social media is blowing up. Social marketing was a big thing. And everybody's talking about, you know, join all these groups, get all these followers, and magically, you know, people buy from you or whatever. But the last chapter of every book was, and now you engage the audience and they buy from you. And I'm like, that's why I was reading the book. Like, that's what I want to know. So I wrote this book, and I sell it to Sandler. It's called LinkedIn, the Sandler Way. And they didn't know if we could put LinkedIn's name on the title of the book, but they do sales training for LinkedIn. So they called up LinkedIn, and LinkedIn said, we've been looking for this book. But then they said, well, LinkedIn and Sandler, these two international companies, don't want to promote Mike Montague as the author. So we're going to take your name off of it and just market it as LinkedIn and Sandler. And we're going to give away the book to everybody that's a LinkedIn premium member. So we're not going to give you any money for it either. So my book had over 80,000 people read the book, and I got $0 and 0 credit.
Oh my gosh.
Well, so be very specific about your goals and selling the book deal of what you want to be for and what you want to use that for. Cause it's a great story, but definitely disappointing in the retirement bank account.
Well, yeah. Wow. What a heartbreak, man. Oh, I feel for you, man.
It was still great, though. I mean, really, to get it out there and know that there was a book that was that popular for anybody tells me that I can do it again. So look for the second Playful Humans book coming soon here.
Sure.
Last thing, do you want to play a game?
Absolutely.
All right. Here we go. We are spinning our big wheel of games. There are 10 games on here it could land on, and you got Survey Says. Survey Says is pretty easy. All you have to do is get some 2 out of 3 right on our top answers on the board. So just like on TV, we surveyed 100 people. The top 5 answers are on the board here. Based on how much you use it, what would you consider the greatest invention ever?
Oh, okay. My goodness. Car came to mind first.
Oh, car is number 4. Number 4.
Right.
Congratulations. We'll give that to you. Telephone, cell phone would definitely is the number 1 answer there.
Oh. What about TV?
Okay.
I almost said TV.
Yes, that was number 2 answer.
Okay.
Name a place where everyone stares at you if you come in late.
Oh, well, my last funeral I was at that happened, but I don't know if I'm going to say funeral. I fell on the casket, but let's say church. I would go church.
Church is the number 1 answer. Congratulations. Yes, church, the number 1 answer.
Was funeral on there anyway?
No, they were business meeting, work, wedding, classroom, movie theater, and court.
Oh, yeah. It would not be good to be late to your own trial.
The judges kind of get picky about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right. Third one. I feel like you've already won, but let's try it. Name a kind of place where you see people constantly checking the time.
Oh. Now this one's a little bit tougher. Constantly checking the time.
Yes, a place.
The bedroom, maybe. See, a little edgy joke again for you there. So,
You're getting into it. I like it. I feel like I'm a bad influence on you.
How about the one that comes to mind for me is some sort of like an event, like a theater or movie, or I'm constantly looking like, is this thing about to start? So that's what I'm going to go with.
Oh, you were close, but no, we missed number 3. We have work, train station number 2. I don't know how that many people, 20 people are still taking the train, but airport, doctor, hospital, bus stop, church, school, and mall. I don't know who's checking the time at the mall either, except for the people that are working at it, which was number 1.
Church, school, the church I could see. I often, if my preacher is going a little over, I'll kind of give one of these to it.
Yeah. Well, when you got the Sunday morning slot and NFL football starts at noon, like you got to pay attention to the clock a little bit.
Right.
I feel like good pastors know that trick.
Yeah, and I'll even kind of give one of these.
You're tall enough and got big enough arms; they can see those subtle hints. From the stage.
Yeah. And he's even got like a countdown clock in the back of the room, and you can kind of tell. I don't know if you're a churchgoer, Mike, but
yeah.
Okay. A lot of the newer churches, they've got the drums encased in like an aquarium. All right. They got the drum aquarium back there. And so our preacher, he's got the countdown clock behind him. And once he goes over, the color of the font of those numbers switches from green to red. And so without turning around, I can see in the reflection of the aquarium, he's over. So sometimes I kind of get a little up and I'll kind of
look back and just give it a honest. I like it. Well, Jeremy, you got 2 out of 3 right, which means you earn a free 30-second commercial for whatever you got going on here. Well, I'll hit the easy ones for you. The stand-up special, Who's With Me, Jeremy Nunes, available on Amazon Prime or Christian Cinema. His dry bar comedy special is called Neighborhood Sasquatch, and his book is called You Can't Write City Hall. And you can find that on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books in a Million, Walmart, wherever you buy books, or just go to youcan'twritecityhall.com. Do you have any other asks or gifts for the audience?
The only other thing would be, if you're a pro wrestling fan of All Elite Wrestling AEW, we've got the Dynamite Drop-In podcast, comedians talking AEW. But yeah, the big one, You Can't Write City Hall, and the stand-up specials. You covered them all, man. And if people want to hire me for a fundraiser or church event or corporate event, jeremynunes.com, you get a free quote right there on the page.
Awesome. I love it. Jeremy, thanks for joining the show today. Again, this is Playful Humans, where we're trying to take the burned out and bored and turn them into the energized, engaged, more playful humans. If you'd like to join the club of other adults rediscovering the power of play, go to playfulhumans.com. There's also a quiz there, which is super fun. There's 10 different play personality types. So maybe you're the sporty athletic type, or maybe you're the board game type, or maybe you are the artist and creator. Go find out playfulhumans.com/quiz. Until next time, whatever you are, be a good one. Have a good one.
Don't wait for tomorrow. Live for today. Keep on chasing the sunshine and go out and play.
Go play, everybody.